Welcome to another great edition of Beacons of Light. Joining me today is Miss Sarah Dulaney, our new shelter director, who's been on the job for about 8 months, and working at St. Vincent de Paul is an interesting experience, isn't it, Sarah?
It is. Thank you for having me today.
Well, what called you to work for St. Vincent de Paul? Because it's more than just a job. It's all about faith, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have a degree in social work, but I pursued that degree because of my faith. And prior to coming to St. Vincent de Paul, I worked in the medical field and did case management, and I felt a calling to do something different. This job came open, and so I decided, God, if this is where I'm supposed to go, that is, and that's how I ended up here. It's a vocation for me.
It's an eye-opening experience, isn't it? I know that when I started at St. Vincent de Paul, I was kind of scared and uptight. I'm still scared and uptight all these 34 years later. And it's all about focusing on faith, because at St. Vincent de Paul, you never know who's going to walk up to the door and need shelter, do you?
Not at all. And as part of the mission, and to see the face of Christ in everyone, we are there to take care of everyone and treat them with dignity and respect, regardless of where they come from.
And sometimes it's easy. I was talking with Miss Linda Reed on another show, and we talked about sometimes people are very thankful, and sometimes they're not very thankful, but it doesn't matter to us because of our faith, right?
Correct. I've been called some names and things have happened to me, and unfortunately that's just not the pretty side of the job, but God calls us to be faithful, and I know that's why I'm here.
And I don't know about you, but from a faith perspective, what a joy it is to work for St. Vincent de Paul, because it's not a job, it's a job that is all about faith. And I think from my standpoint, when I walk up and I see all of those coming to us, they're searching for hope, and we're there to provide it.
Absolutely.
And on cold weather nights, I find that that's where you and your entire staff, it takes a light to respond in those disaster nights, huh?
It does. Depending on the circumstances and bed availability, sometimes we have to open up our emergency shelter. Sometimes we have enough beds that we're able to fit everyone into our regular emergency shelter, but it requires additional staff, it requires additional food and beds and all the supplies that we need to help them from night to night.
You talk about supplies. We were together at Catholic High recently. They gave us a check, and they're collecting men's underwear for us, because that's something we need a lot of at St. Vincent, huh?
We never seem to have enough men's underwear. I'm not sure why. Someone said maybe it was a little bit costly, but that is something that we always seem to be short on. We get a lot of things for women and children, but a lot of times the men get overlooked. So it was such a breath of fresh air that Catholic High decided to do this for the men in our shelter.
Yeah, we get a lot of donations of socks, and we need every one of them. But underwear is one of those things that you need, and most of the time when men show up, also mothers and children, they need new underwear, because it is not very inexpensive. Has your eyes been opened by the number of people that come in with things, and isn't it inspiring to see all the donations that come through the door?
It is inspiring. It's amazing. We get so many things on any given day, and people don't realize how far that goes to help someone who comes to our doors and has nothing.
Right. And I know for me, it's eye-opening when somebody comes to you. They have no shoes. They may have no pants. They may have no shirt. It's just, they come to us, they need everything.
Absolutely. And we are so grateful to be able to provide for those needs. And that's through the donations that we get on a regular basis.
And, people do that as an act of faith. And one of the things that I think one of our greatest programs is the Manna Givers program, when the individuals out in the community, they bring in a home-cooked meal. That's a powerful thing to witness, don't you think, Sarah?
Absolutely. A lot of the guests in the shelter get so excited when they find out that night they're going to have a manna giver, because you never really know what they're going to be getting. You know, we have a manna giver that sometimes donates pizza, and they get really excited. And we think of pizza as, oh, it's just pizza, but for them, it's a luxury.
Yeah, pizza's a secondary thing we get when we're in a rush or hurry or don't have time. But for a lot of people, that's a luxury. And some of the people that we help, that's everything we supply is pretty much a luxury. They don't have a safe place to call home. They're there for us and to give us the opportunity to fulfill our faith also, right?
Absolutely. I remember when I was interviewing for the job, and we talked about strengthening faith or testing faith, and that happens both on this job, but more so strengthening the faith, because you can't do this work without having God behind you.
Right. And you never, when you help someone who's experiencing homelessness, you don't ever, it's not how they respond. It's more an internal thing, knowing I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what Christ called me to do. Do you feel that sometimes when you go to that door and you see somebody that hadn't been nice to you before, you still help them because that's Christ in front of you?
Absolutely. He called us to forgive 7 times, 70 times.
Yeah.
We continue to show the love of Christ in everything that we do.
And, you know, one of my big concerns is, you know, there are more encampments in the community. People are experiencing, seeing individuals with mental illness and homelessness, that people would have a negative connotation of someone who's experiencing homelessness and not see them as a human being. It's critical that we see everybody on this planet as a human being. And why is that important in our work at St. Vincent?
These people need us, and so we have to be there for them. So we treat everyone just like we would treat our family and our loved ones.
And that's a great point, because whether it's a child and a family that we're helping, we're looking at an older woman. Maybe we think of her mom. I know I do. Older gentleman, it may be someone you think of, a father, a grandfather. We try to do for them what we would do for our family, right?
Yes. Everything we do, we really have no idea how much it's going to impact someone down the road. There was a gentleman that came to the shelter, and he got himself a job, and he got housed, and he came back and he said, "I'm just so grateful for all that you guys have done for me."
And that's what uplifts you. Sometimes you don't get uplifted. I don't know what the best terminology would be for that. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Sarah about some of those more challenging cases, and also how the volunteers of St. Vincent de Paul really make an impact, whether it's underwear or toiletry items or food. They're bringing the love of Christ into our shelter every day. For over 20 years, the St. Vincent de Paul Community Pharmacy has served our area. We provide prescription medicines for those who have nowhere to turn for this most basic healthcare need. Please, if you need your medicine or you know a family member that needs their medicine, contact us. Kay, how can they get in touch?
383-7450.
Give us a call today and spread the word so that we can ensure no one goes without their prescription medication. never know what's going to happen at St. Vincent de Paul. And joining me today is Sarah Dulaney. That's very true at our shelter program. And that's why the foundation of everything we do is built on our faith. What kind of started your faith life when you went to school?
I've grown up as Catholic. My whole family's Catholic. You know, when I was in school, I went to Catholic Appointed P, and there were in elementary school 3 sisters that I remember so well: Sister Rita, Sister Marilyn, and Sister Agnes, and they were prime examples of Sisters of St. Joseph, of how to lead and how to be a good Catholic and to follow your faith. And that is basically what drove me to becoming a social worker. And so fast forward, and now I'm here.
Yeah, and part of their mission with the Sisters of St. Joseph is our dear neighbor. And our dear neighbor is those individuals who are most vulnerable. And when you open up the door at St. Vincent de Paul, you have a lot of vulnerable individuals that come through the door. And sometimes the job's easy, and you know, off camera, we were reflecting on the fact that in your 8 months as a shelter director, there have been some things very challenging, but things run interestingly well for so many people. I mean, on any given night, you got well over 100 people that you're providing shelter to. And 70% of them are suffering from some form of mental illness. It's any special stories you can think of where you touch somebody's life, or, you know, it just really meant something special to your faith life?
You know, there was a lady who'd been staying outside of the shelter for quite some time. And, you know, we made several attempts to get her to come in. And whenever it started to get cold, last fall, winter, we invited her to come in, and she decided to take us up on it. And we were quite surprised because she is challenging, but she came in and everything went quite smoothly, and we were able to give her shelter for several nights, and she's been living on the streets. So that really, really touched me that we were able to do that for her.
And explain to the audience, I mean, the service of getting someone off the street, that's a powerful, it's got faith implications. That's what St. Vincent and St. Louise did so much of. But it really, that's victory for our mission, in that, yeah, that's all we were able to do, but it may lead to bigger and better things, right?
Absolutely. Like I said previously, you know, you just never really know what you're going to do that's really going to make a difference in somebody's life. And it can be that one time, you know, as we talked about the theme of forgiveness, you continue to go back and you continue to do for people. And eventually, you never know if that's going to be the one thing that creates change for them.
Yeah, and for the audience, I mean, safety is our main concern at our shelter. So where we draw the line is if there's any safety issues, if somebody's a danger to others. So we don't have very many disturbances. Every once in a while we do, where somebody, you know, gets in an altercation with someone. And when that happens, we draw the line, don't we?
Unfortunately, and that's a difficult thing to do, but it's necessary for the safety of everyone.
We make a difference by keeping everybody safe. And sometimes it's, you know, safe is off the street like you described, because I know the woman that you provided that service to. And I also know that sometimes you have people that will spit at you, and I know that's happened as well, hadn't it?
Unfortunately, but you know, we keep moving forward because that's what we're called to do.
Yeah, no matter what happens, we're called to have Christ really be there for the people that we desperately serve. Mm-hmm. I know for me, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of mothers coming in cars. They've lost everything. You've seen a lot of that over the last 8 months.
We have, and we do our best to serve them. We get to enroll them in our TANF program, who is remarkable in terms of providing services and helping them to get back on their feet when they come to us and they don't have anything and they have nowhere to go. But they help with the kids, making sure they go get into school. And it's just really, really wonderful to be able to provide that service for them.
No doubt about it. You know, on a regular night, it's challenging providing shelter. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm in my 34th year at St. Vincent de Paul, and Sarah, for the first time, had to deal with something I've never seen before, which is 22 or below temperatures for several days, including Christmas Day. And that was a challenge, wasn't it?
It was a challenge, but it was also very rewarding. We got so many gifts donated for Christmas, and to be able to provide those gifts to the folks in the shelter, they were so grateful, and it was kind of magical.
Yeah, and what we had to do was open up the overflow shelter. And the overflow shelter during Christmas time, we've been using it as a warehouse for our on-site toy distribution that Bishop Duca does, as well as our other efforts by volunteers that help us and the bishop to get gifts out, and good Sylvia Witherspoon there at Channel 2. And we had it packed with presents, and here it comes 3 or 4 days before Christmas, and we're figuring out where we're going to put the Christmas toy. That was an adventure, huh?
That was, and some of our folks got some gifts a little bit early, but we were able to make it work, and that to me is a testament to the staff that we have. They're amazing and all wonderful people of faith.
No doubt about it. People like Linda Reed, and she does such a great job, and so many of your staff that they give up these are extra hours when they go and they take care of those who, I mean, you would have had people outside at night, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, if it wasn't for St. Vincent de Paul.
Absolutely. We opened the doors and they came, and we were able to provide a service for them and a shelter for them, and a little bit extra because it was Christmas.
And you know, a lot of times people don't understand, well, why didn't they go to your regular shelter? Sometimes it's just because they prefer living outside. That's why there's so many people in these encampments. They kind of prefer that versus a shelter. Has that been an eye-opening thing for you to see that?
It has. A lot of them struggle with structure and following the rules, and you know, whenever, if it's a safety issue, then sometimes we have to ask them to leave, and you know, but we will always be willing to take them back, and time again. We go above and beyond to try to help them as much as we can.
And sometimes it's a lot of de-escalation, because we don't want them to burn the bridge, because once they do something that is a danger to others, then we've got to draw that line. So y'all do a lot of de-escalation work, trying to get people to get along, and that's kind of challenging when so many of those we help are suffering from mental illness, right?
Absolutely. It has definitely been eye-opening, the challenges that the folks that we serve, that they're faced with, but also trying to come up with the resources to help them to find a job if they're able to hold a job, or to find income through disability if they can't hold a job, and then to, you know, mend fences. Sometimes it's about helping them with family.
Right.
But the case managers do a fantastic job of helping them every day.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the fact that St. Vincent de Paul is family to so many that don't have family to turn to when we come back. The Society of St. Vincent de Paul's first cookbook, Taste and See, is the gift which helps share the goodness of the Lord with those most in need. Featuring recipes from Chef John Foles, each chapter begins with a short story about one of our special work programs. To order your copy of Taste and See, please call the Society or visit our website. Help multiply blessings for the neediest in our community.
My Bicycle Journey, a book that tells a story. It educates, it promotes, and it also provides some leadership. Take the time to purchase this book, and St. Vincent de Paul benefits from all of the proceeds of this book. Please, if you would, give St. Vincent de Paul a call and let me know what you think of my bicycle journey.
Welcome back. We were talking when we ended the last segment about being family for those in need. And since you've been with us, Sarah, what's opened your eyes the most about the need in our community?
Just the vast, like how much need there is. I knew when I was taking this job that it was not going to be easy, but when I walked in, and to this day, the need is so great. The need for help from everyone in the community.
Right. And it's important that we work together. And, you work for a great secular medical hospital. And in that role, you enjoyed that work, you tied it to the faith. But what makes it different in regard to being at a place like St. Vincent? That's our mission. That's what we do.
Well, working in a faith-based organization allows me to live my faith a little bit more freely than in a non-faith-based organization.
Yeah, which is, as Catholics, that's a good thing.
Right.
Some places are not as open as other places might be, but we have that direct connection with our faith, and every time that need that you've said is so overwhelming, because all you have to do at St. Vincent de Paul is come to us around 11:30 every day. You can see the need, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, people line up every day, and Miss Denise does such an awesome job at that dining hall to make sure that everybody who needs a meal gets one.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that, when we do have a man or a giver group that brings the meals to the shelter every night of the year, we have groups that have to call in. We've got COVID, or they can't come, or just a night that nobody could fill in and bring a cooked meal. Denise fills those meals in, doesn't she?
She does. We have a list that of the nights that we have the manna givers, and then on those nights when we don't have anyone, we let Miss Denise know, and she always takes care of them.
Well, you can go to svdpbr.org and hit volunteer and go to the volunteer site, and you can sign up to be a manna giver, and that's one critical program in our community. But in our last segment, we talked about all of these various services, and there are a ton of them, but not near enough. And one is our TANF program, which is temporary aid for needy families. And we have 3 case managers. Tell the audience what we do with those case managers.
They will get referred the individuals that come into our shelter, and they do a lot of help finding housing, helping with the cost of housing. They help make sure that the children are able to get to school, they get uniforms for school, they get everything that they need, and to get set up in order to be self-sufficient.
That's individuals with families. What about the Capital Area Human Services District? Who do we refer those individuals for? What services?
They do a fantastic job of providing behavioral health services. So, they help our individuals that come in who may have mental health or substance abuse issues.
What about other providers like Christian Outreach? We work with them, and also the Missionaries of Charity at St. Agnes, right?
Yes. Our assistant director, Miss Linda Reed, does a fantastic job making sure that we work together with them to help find shelter, if it isn't at St. Agnes or if it's with us. Christian Outreach does a wonderful job providing different services, such as help with the cost of an ID. Sometimes they will help with bus passes. But it is, we work so well together. And that's one of the most awesome parts about working at St. Vincent de Paul.
Another tremendously great resource is Catholic Charities here in the diocese, and we work so closely with them. They do such a wonderful job, and they've just got a gamut of services, especially immigration services and other areas that they really excel. So we work there and coordinate our activities with them, and it's great to have such a great Catholic partner in the community. In regard to openness, we work with everyone to make a difference, as long as they share the values of St. Vincent and St. Louise, correct?
We work with anyone, regardless. Our job is to help. It is not to, say, no, we can't do this or we can't do that. We are there to serve everyone and to work together to make it a better community.
And our faith calls us to evaluate how we can help. That doesn't say judge someone. Instead, it says, like in the previous segment, you mentioned the lady who sleeping out on the street, probably living in an encampment of one, so to speak. That's what we're called to do, just to provide that helping hand up, right?
Absolutely. And St. Vincent de Paul does a job that's not like no other, that at least in the community that I have seen. And this is coming from outside, coming in. We provide services like the shelter. Someone can come in and they can shower if they haven't showered in days. We get meals, we have clothes, everything they need we can usually provide for them.
And I mentioned Catholic Charities, but Catholic Charities and St. Vincent de Paul Capital Area United Way is so critical. Work very closely with the Capital Area United Way and their 211 number. We get a lot of referrals, and we also refer individuals to 211, and that's important as well.
Absolutely. All of the organizations in the community are very, very helpful and work together with us and our mission.
And that's critical, because in today's world, they're not, 34 years ago, believe it or not, there were more resources. And in our interview with Miss Linda Reed on a previous show, she said some of the federal programs and state programs has decreased, and you've seen the impact of that, right?
Absolutely. I saw that even long before I came to St. Vincent de Paul. In the past decade or so, the services that we have needed for individuals in the community have drastically declined. And
that's why our work's so important. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show today, and a great job you do. And we hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to get involved, go to svdpbr.org and see how you can be a part of our ministry to those in need. See you again next week on Beacons of Light.